Hi, this is Em, and in this video we are going to do a demonstration for flower pressing, and this is going into the second week of August, and so we're into the mid to late summer blooming flowers, and I don't think I've shown you most of the flowers that I'm going to do today. This is probably going to be done in two parts. This one here, and then I'm going to press what I brought in, and then I'm going to go back out and pick some more flowers that will be totally different than the ones that I'm going to do in this video. The next one will have things like Queen Anne's lace and larkspur and clematis and things like that. So if you're wanting more of a comprehensive overview of demonstrating pressed flowers, then watch both these videos. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is to move this box out of the way and bring in a pressing book just so I can use it as a demonstration. Oops, excuse me, I bumped the camera. Okay, well, while we wait for the camera to steady up. And I've already put a top sheet on. I'm going to put a bottom sheet because I always sandwich in between. I've already done extensive videos earlier in my timeline about what I use, how I press, how I store. So we'll just get right down to the business of talking about some flowers here today. The first one that I'm going to talk about is this is the bush potentilla. I did a video earlier today where we peeked at pressed flowers. So some of the flowers that you're going to see me pressing in this demonstration, I showed you what they look like after they're pressed, because a lot of people will say, well, what do they look like after they're pressed? So be sure to check peeking at flowers videos to see them after they're pressed. So this is what I talked about as being the bush potentilla. It grows, it's a shrub out there, probably about 5 feet tall. And here's the buds. And then here's what they look like when they flower. And I just go in, these are pretty simple, and I just pinch off the back, usually with my fingernails, which is why my fingers always look really bad. And of course, if I'm not on camera, they just come right off. And I just pinch it right off. And then, whether I lay something flat down, face down, or face up, just depends on how I think they lay best. This one is going to lay better being flat that way, in my humble opinion. Okay, so I'm not going to actually leave them in the book because I'm just using this as a demonstration. I'll come back. That's why I've got to do this in two parts. I'll come back and actually press these when I'm not off camera. This is the salvia, the red or orangish salvia. And I pick off the flowers. And you can already see that I've already picked on this one. I've already picked some of this stuff out here. I usually don't pick the whole spike off because I let it work its way up. But for the video here, I want you to see how the spike is. And so then I pick off these individual florets. And then I press. See, this flower already fell out. And so I'll pick all these off. The top cluster, I'll leave whole and press it in a cluster. And so you get the idea on that. Anything, and I'm always, when I'm looking at these things, I'm always seeing if they look blemish free, because I want blemish free items. And so I'm always checking that out. And so what I'll do with this is I'll just stick this in the book. Now, if you've watched some of my videos, you'll usually hear me talking about, when I'm laying them down, thinking about how this book is going to roll and how they're laying, because I roll the book and I want it to go with, I want it to be realistic and go with it. I don't want it to mar. So I generally, these are wet, there's still some wet, but they'll be okay. So I just usually set these in this way and close the book. Okay. And then this was another kind of a salvia. There's a lot of different salvias out there. Let's see if I can get it so that it's not comes into focus here. It's really pretty. And I will now see this one. I wouldn't press something like that because you can see how it's all blemished. So I wouldn't press that one. And this one's too blemished too, but the other ones up higher are okay. So sometimes I'll press the whole spike if you want to do a cluster work. And these, depending upon how I want them, if I want these to lay down like that, then I'll press them this way. See how the book rolls it over? But if I want it to press like this, then I'll put the book that way. So it just depends on the look that you want when it's finished. And taking a couple extra minutes to figure out the look that you want when you're pressing them makes a lot of difference to how they are when they're done. I will also take the floret off and press them singly, and then press the cluster. See? So it just depends on the look that you want. This poor piece of paper is going to look pretty ragged by the time we're done. In the video earlier today where we were picking up flowers, I was talking about the liatris blooming from the top down. And see, these haven't bloomed yet, and it started from the top. And what I do with those is I pick the floret off, and then I just press it, the individual florets, just like that. Now this is still a little bit bulky, so you want to put it under a lot of weight, but it will press down pretty good. But it's not so bulky that it doesn't make it through reasonably. And then, so that's the liatris. Let's talk about anemone. There's a lot of different kinds of anemone. This anemone is from a corm, a bulbous type corm. And this one is a perennial that just grows out in the garden and blooms late summer every year. And they come in different colors. I've got this more saturated pink. We also have a white. And then these come in all different kinds of colors. My husband had, he bought a pack, a variety pack, and they bloomed all winter long in his little window box outside the back door. And of course, he's real finicky about letting me press his flowers. So I didn't get to press any. This is mine. This is all mine. And I'm going to buy myself a mixed pack of anemone chromes this winter and plant them so I can go ahead and pick them and press them. These look really pretty. Now, what I do is there's the center. The center is kind of hard, and you don't have to. You can press them. It's not so hard that you can't press them. So it just depends on what mood I'm in and how flat I want these petals. But if you do pinch the center out, then I just take my fingernail and I just pinch the center out. Then you got a little yellowish in the center instead of the purple. And then you can leave it on the stem, but typically I will press the stems and the flowers separate, because then that way I can decide if I'm doing an arrangement with just the blossom or whether I want it standing on a stem. So I will typically press them separate. So I'll snip that off. This one, the perennial, this center is a lot harder than the one that I just showed you. This is real hard, so I definitely will take the center out. Okay. And it's still It still leaves the yellow around, but it will press nice and flat. And then again, I will take the stem off. Anemones hold their color really well. The Liatris that I showed you actually everything that I've showed you so far holds their color really well. Something else is the Cosmos, which I showed you earlier today, which is this saturated color. These centers aren't real hard, so they'll press down good. I don't worry about the centers. I press them with the centers. I don't try to do anything about it. Again, I'll press the stems separate, just cut them from the back. And depending upon how fresh they are, because these will start wilting quick, I'll either just leave them, if they're real fresh, then when you let me get a piece of cardboard so I can bring this up, show you what I'm talking about. When they're real fresh, and not starting to wilt, if you put them this way, they'll spread out and they won't buckle up. But this is just starting to get to the point where it wants to not lay nice and flat. It still will, so it's not too far past the point. If I think that they're getting a little bit too wilty, sometimes I will press them open a little bit with my finger, and then I'll put them on this side of the book, and I will roll the book over it, and then it will fan it out. See how it did? See? So again, sometimes I'll do it this way and let the book fan it out, and sometimes I will do it face down. It just depends on the flower and how wilty it is and what it's doing. This was, let's see, where is, oh, here. In the Peeking at Flowers video, I kept calling them Osteospermium, where I was talking about how I had gone and gotten 3 different kinds of these types of flowers from the garden center this year. And I did bring the tag in because I was wondering what the heck it was, and it is see if I can get this to Agrananthum. All you botanists out there will know better. I just butcher names. Argyranthemum. If I said it right. Scented foliage attracts butterflies to your garden. Crusted Merlot. And this is the one that I showed you that I pressed. And again, it's not super hard, so I just cut that off. I'll push it down with my finger just to kind of open it up. And then I'll usually just either put it, sometimes I'll do it face up, or more typically I'll put it face down for pressing. And let's get those out of the way. Here's another one that this is the one that I showed you in the Peeking at Pressed Flowers that was light and then graduated into that darker color. Just gorgeous, really pretty pressed. You could also press it in profile and leave the leaves on. That would be very attractive, which is probably what I'll do with this one. I'll probably press this one this way because I like the way that looks. So that's how I'll press it. I'll put it on there and then I'll just press it flat in the book. Here again, I showed you at the Peeking. This was the what I called the tick seed, and I just cut it off the back. And lay it down on the page, and it's not too thick. I usually use my finger to help smash it a little bit, and just lay it on the page. And typically I will lay it face down, but this one I think you could do it either way, face down or face up. And Here's another Coreopsis family. And these press real good, hold their color for a long time. Now it probably gets about 2 or 3 feet tall and grows in a clump. It runs a little bit, but it's not terribly bad. And again, I will snip the back off. And I will push the center out with my finger and just press it. And it usually turns out pretty good. I think that's Moonbeam Coreopsis. Then here's some little buds you can press. This, in the last video when I showed you, the ones that I showed you didn't turn out all that well. And I think, when I was thinking further about it, this is a, what was it? I think I called it a pot marigold, but I think it's a calendula. It's a calendula is what I believe it is. And these will reseed. They're annual, but they will reseed if you let them go to seed. And then you can get some next year. I push it the center and then just press it like that. And if you have enough weight on them and they're fresh enough when you press them, they'll turn out a lot better than the ones that I showed you in the video earlier today. And these hold their color really well. Also in the Peeking It video earlier today, I talked about the oregano. Get some of these spent flowers off. Okay. I talked about the oregano where I picked them before they started flowering. Well, all of the before they started flowering is gone. They're all in flower now, and most of them are spent. So I'm gonna press a couple of them with the flowers, but I just wanted to show you what they look like when they're in flower. And I'll just set them on the book. And roll the book over. Fan these heads out. And then press, put them in the press. And then they'll look like that. Let's see, what else have we not talked about yet? Lupin. Lupins are basically gone except for this one floret that's left. And you can press the whole thing, but they're pretty bulky and the stems are very thick. So I'll usually pinch the florets off, and then I'll just press the florets. And then the tops, I'll usually take the top and I'll fan the top out. They're usually a little bit more bloomed out so that these are looking a little bit better, but then I'll do the top as a whole cluster section, and then here's your buds. And so they're very easy to press. Just put them in there and press them. But I pretty much got my lupins for the season, but I wanted to show you what they look like. Two things that I take from their sheathing, although, if I can find the bachelor button, where did it go? Well, I had yeah, maybe I didn't pick it. I was going to. You can press these just like this. Only here's an example of where, if I want this to look like that, I would press it, because of the rolling thing, I would press it like this. I'd put it in this way, and then I would use the book to roll it over and keep it open. If you want it to be like that. If you want it more in a profile, then you would lay it this way and then let the book roll it more in a profile. Or you can take the petals out of the sheath and you can press the individual petals, because they're very interesting. They have the nice First of all, I love the way they've got that watercolor variegated look, and then the way that it's got the serrated edges. And then you can flesh it in florets and then use it in more smaller work. So this is a carnation, and there's a lot of different colors of carnations. And the same is true with dianthus, which is just a less fancy member of the carnation family. Same thing, depending upon whether you want it more of an open face or a profile or a floret look, you can decide how you want to press them. Let's talk about Celosia. I've got a couple different colors. This one is a little more orangish. This one's a little bit more of a reddish orange. And then this guy looks kind of like a mangled mess, but it's a yellow. And sometimes I'll press the whole plume as long as it's not too thick. I'll fan it out. And what I mean by that is I'll take my fingers and I'll fan it out so it's not quite as bulky. And I'll press it in the whole piece. And other times I will take the florets off and then press smaller pieces. So it just depends on the look that you want and how you want to do it. And those are easy to do. And they hold their color really well for a really long time. The yellow will mellow out a little bit. It's not quite as spectacular as the oranges and the reds, but when you want the lighter color, that works well. Here is the bidden that I showed in the Peeking at Flowers video. And just take the stem off and just press it. Usually I'll put it face down. That's usually typically how I'll lay it down. This is toad flax, and it's a spiky thing, and press the whole spike. And I will lay it in the book generally this way, and then press it down. And they hold their color reasonably well, and they add an interesting touch to your arrangements when you want something spiky. This, I don't know what it is. It's like a brachycomb or something. It's got little yellow flowers. Those are really pretty pressed. Seem to hold their color okay. Kind of a daisy-like configuration. Something that there's a lot of in this yard is heather. And I just went and picked a couple of different kinds. They're just starting. The summer heather are just starting. And then there's winter heather. Got white and pink Mediterranean winter heather. But just to kind of give you an idea of all the different kinds of heathers that there are. And I will press them on the spike, or when I want to do miniature work, this one's a really good contender because the size is perfect. It's about the size of the Mediterranean. I will take, and it's real easy to do, and just take them off, strip them off the stem, and then scatter them on the page, and then that way you can use the individual pieces in your arrangements. And then these, if you want something super small, same thing. You just strip them off. So you can decide how you want to do it. Press the whole section, or the spike, or sometimes I'll even drill down and use the little tiny florets in jewelry or miniature work. So summer heathers are coming on now, and there's a lot of different kinds, so you can check that out. Let's see what else haven't I shown you on this round. Oh, Marigold. Marigold holds their color forever, and they're too thick to press, in my opinion. So what I do is I take the sheath off, and they're very wet inside, so I actually have a little tissue up here, and I kind of just do that. Let's get a little of the excess moisture off, and then I will lay them this way on the book. These guys I'll press this way. And yes, I do take the time to put them individually. And then these, I will generally put them this way in the book. And what I mean by that is, I'll usually put these this way so that the book can roll over it. And then I'll put these this way. It's typically how I press them, because that's just kind of how I like them to look. So that's Marigold. They hold their color really well, and there's different, more reds, and some are a little more yellow, and so on. And I think the last thing I had here to show you was this round is Alyssum. And there's different colors. There's the purple. This one's more saturated, so the color is going to last a lot longer. And that one's the lighter purple. And then this is white. This is kind of spent. There's another one out there that has bigger flowers that isn't as spent, but this is the one that I ended up bringing in. And I will put these in the book. Again, it just depends on the look. Sometimes I'll put them in this way where I want the flowers to kind of be laying more open. And then sometimes if I just want to see more of the spike, I will fan them open and lay them that way. And these are really good for jewelry and miniature arrangements too, because once they're dry, you can take these little tiny blossoms off, and they'll be their own. See how small that is? And they're just really good in jewelry work. Now, the one thing when you're out there testing flowers is, this is a begonia, a wax begonia, and in all the times I've ever tried to press them over the years, they never make it through because they're super wet. And one way when you're out there going, oh, will this press or won't it? And I actually did it in the garden talking about wet flowers and how to determine. Certainly give it a try. If you've never experimented with a flower, try it anyway, because your experience may be different than mine. But typically, I find that these will brown and kind of dither away. And one thing that I do, if I don't have experience with the flower, is I will just gently take it between my finger. And you see where I just did one little loop, and look at how wet that is. Can you see how wet that is? See how wet? I mean, my finger is just wet, look. Just from that one little thing. And it's going transparent. Look at it, it just goes away. Okay. This is the last flower I'm doing for the video, so I'll go wash my hands. See? It's just not, impatiens are the same way. These worked really good in the echo steaming video that I did for laying color down. See how? See it imparts color. See? So there are things that you can do with it, but pressing them and getting them through the press in any reasonable fashion isn't one of them, in my opinion anyway. Okay, so I'm going to go wash my hands. That's it for this video. I'm going to press... oh, no, wait a minute. I had one more thing I wanted to talk about because I don't want to ruin it while it's here. And that was... I brought in a Dahlia. Okay. In the peeking at flowers earlier today, I showed you Dahlia. It was an all-red Dahlia. It wasn't this kind of candy-striped Dahlia. But I talked about taking the flower petals off the back to make it so it wasn't so thick, because this is very thick. And what I was talking about, because if you're lucky, it will make it through. I've done some that brown before they made it through, but I never give up because these are so cool. So what I'm talking about is, you know, trying to make a decision of pulling ones off that aren't going to make it look icky on the front, and just pulling. Look at the front and make sure it still looks good. And cutting down on some of the volume. Yeah, I can probably get rid of that. And you can just take as many petals that, you know, and just, it's going to just shrink. It won't be as big, but that's okay. And then, see, and then take and cut the back off. And then I use my finger to kind of press it open a little bit. And then lay it on your book. And then I will press these individual florets, because these florets hold their color well and look real pretty as an individual statement piece. Okay, now really that's it. You have a good day. If you're interested in seeing, I'm going to bring in fuchsia, larkspur, Queen Anne, and some other ones, but I just want to give you a highlight of some of the ones that I was going to bring in. So if that's of interest, then come back and join me here in a little while. Thank you very much. Have a good day.